Rudess, and I'd like to talk to you about The Road Home, my new solo album on Magna Carta Records. The decision to make this album was, in a way, an easy one because, well, I needed to make a new solo album. It's always kind of a thing to think about, well, what are you going to do? And my first thought, of course, was to compose some original music. But then when I was thinking about it, I thought, wouldn't it be kind of interesting for this album to let people kind of hear the way that I would interpret some progressive rock tune. And the first tune that came into my mind was Tarkus. At first I thought I would do an arrangement of Tarkus and then have the rest of the album be original. And I was talking to some of the guys at Magna Carta, and in talking to them about this concept, we were all kind of excited about the possibility of my doing this. And I realized that it might be really cool to actually go back and pick some of my very favorite ones beyond Tarkus and do my own arrangements. So slowly but surely the original idea evolved into something that has become this cover album. And I'm really excited about it. I think that it turned out really well, and I'm excited to share some of the behind the scenes stuff about the album with you right now. Let's talk about Tarkus, because that's how it all began. When I was at Juilliard, I was a very, very serious classical piano student, and when I was about 17 or 18 years old, it was time for me to leave the preparatory division of Juilliard and enter into the college division. And it was a big stage for me, because what was happening was I was getting more and more exposed to different kinds of music. At the same time, I was being geared and prepped towards being a classical concert pianist. And I started to hear things like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and Genesis, and Yes, and my high school friends were like turning me on to all these really cool albums. And my brain was really working. And the one particular thing that I heard that really changed my life is Tarkus. I remember when my friend came over to my house and he brought the Tarkus album. We were hanging out in my bedroom. He put it on. And from the moment I heard those like amazing suspended chords in all their kind of glory and power, I was totally like changed. I thought, oh my God, a keyboard player could have so much power. So that was really a big deal for me. I would listen to that album over and over again and really try to understand what it was about this music that was affecting me so deeply. And I had been composing music that was a little bit like progressive, looking back and thinking about what I was actually writing. It was kind of like progressive rock, only I didn't know anything about progressive rock. But hearing Keith Emerson's music and his playing and Tarkus kind of made me aware that there was a possibility of having keyboards really speak with true strength and power. And so that's why I decided on this album to go back and cover that song, because it just meant so much to me. One of the challenges in doing something like Tarkus, and even doing all the other tunes as well, but we'll talk about them separately, was how to orchestrate them, because Tarkus had so much meaning as it is. I mean, it just, in my mind, it's just this complete work, and it's just, I've heard it a million times. So how was I going to change it and add my own unique voice to this piece? Well, the first thing I decided to do was to deal with the whole question of the Hammond organ. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to get a better Hammond organ sound than Keith Emerson. So my approach was to, okay, maybe I'll have a little bit of organ in it, but I'll also try to go in a different route and try to kind of orchestrate it a little bit differently and use some timbres that perhaps that he wouldn't use and were more, coming from me. So, let's just check out, the one kind of like tribute to the Hammond organ that I did on this album. It's kind of a cool organ lead. So a lot of what I did was to try to just be true to the original. And what's really funny is that in some ways, when I listen to what Keith Emerson did live with ELP, with Tarkus, I mean, he's changed it so much. It's like, a totally different piece than when he did it in the studio. But of course, for me, I listened to it so much in the studio that I'm like very true. Even some of the parts where he was playing like leads over, ostinato bass lines, I would just, pretty much copy what he did on the record, but maybe use a different sound, like what I did on the Moog synthesizer over this particular, riff, which you can check out. I use the Moog in a way to really try to be very expressive and have a lot of nuance, because with the Moog I was having a lot of fun working the filters and using the touchpad on my my Moog Voyager to control the sound, so it was kind of animated, so the sound is never static. Synthesizers, you have to be careful with synthesizers. In this lead that I played, I was constantly working with the touchpad and working with the wheel. I'd have the wheel assigned to like frequency modulation, and I'd have the touchpad assigned to filter and a little bit of resonance, and constantly moving. I don't think there was ever any point where I just let the sound alone and wasn't controlling it in some way.